Well, hello and welcome. We are here to bookend week 6 of the ZRL WTRL. I'm Kate Bates, joined by Dave Towle. Dave, we've got America West today. The last 24 hours has seen some incredible racing. It's a day for the climbers. They're on Climbers Gambit. What have you seen so far that has excited you? Because I can tell you, Dave, APAC was unbelievable action. So many really possibly not that anticipated results. Oh,
Sorry
we
there,
don't have
Kate. Yeah,
Dave at the
great.
moment. Oh, there he is. He's
I,
back.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Hey, that's a great question, Kate, because today has really lived up to all of the hype. It has been incredible racing around the globe. I didn't have a chance to see APAC, but what we have seen, well, again, Rachel Elliott comes to mind. She won in a solo move by over a minute today. We've seen teams step up. We just witnessed in America's East the Wahoo Lacole team making big strides there against Riot. And probably comprehensively, Kate, the best day of racing that we've seen in ZRL history. Had James Barnes, as everyone's getting ready for world championships too, there's that energy going right now. And James Barnes was in chat watching here on Zwift community and saying it was the hardest day that we've seen so far in 5 seasons of ZRL. I haven't heard anyone, Kate, cut against that grain yet.
I think that's a pretty good way to sum it up, to be honest. And I'm glad you mentioned Worlds coming up, Dave, because on my notepad, I have written Philippe Nystrom, why no Worlds? So that's something that we have to discuss once we're underway because
Oh,
I
good
want to
question.
know why Costa Rica isn't sending him out there. Interestingly, Dave, I think there's a pretty big mix of riders across Premier League and also Community League that are getting ready for the World Championships. I love that. It means that they're not all smushed together in Prem League leading into it. And we are seeing some of these community leagues really animated. We'll be following the men's A today and the women's B and C. We will head down there and jump in right with the action. 27.7 kilometres out there today, Dave, but they do finish on the reverse epic KOM, which is about a 15-minute effort for the fellas and around 20 to
Yeah.
22 minutes for the women. That is where all the action will unfold. So we can get excited early, uh, but it is later. The first thing we'll see is the replay of the women's sprint. So that is happening pretty early on course. This is what we are looking at now. Dave, no unexpected names here. Danny Torelli leading the way ahead of Joy Connolly. It looks like Connolly might make it over the top here. She's going to muscle over the top of Torelli and take those early points. For Joy Connolly and Torelli, that final climb will be a tough one for them. But with this points race system, Dave, they're getting in early and they're certainly setting themselves up to still be thereabouts at the finish, even if they don't get those points at the end.
You only get one crack at the fastest through segment out here. We're going in now, live images from our women's race. You can see that orange and blue DDC jersey, but it's going to be Joy Connolly there picking up maximum bonification for the ATP team. Nice way to start the race, Joy. So she'll pick up the fastest through segment, the first across the line points. And again, we're not doing laps out here, Kate, so that's really significant for ATP. We can see then how the points break down from here on in. The 6 kilometers of climbing that come up at the back end of this race, you have vertical gain close to well, it's about 1,000 feet of climbing over that period of time. It's the toughest sector that we've ever raced through, and it has done the most damage. There's not a racer that came through unscathed out here today. And typically what we've seen, Kate, is it's been aggressive, no doubt, but there have been a little lulls after the points, the fury that goes on around the point sprints. They have backed off a little bit with just trepidation for knowing how brutal that last effort is going to be. And you say 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, my gosh, if you can make it up that climb in 15 minutes, you're world class. Leonard Tugels, in our solo win in Premier yesterday, did it in 13:24. No one goes up that
Woo!
climb
That is
fast. Yeah,
absolutely smoking, isn't it? Well, I think one of the
unreal.
challenges on top of that, Dave, is that before they even hit that Epic KOM reverse, which, as you point out, is a massive climb in and of itself. They go through Titans Grove, which everybody knows that even if you just try and save some energy through there, it's a little bit of a cluster faff of a road
Yeah.
in terms of being able to hold any energy. It's really wearing. So they go through the KOM there, and they will all be a little bit fatigued even when they hit the bottom, no matter what they do, again, because of those
We
gravel sections as well. Dave, can we talk about power-ups? Because one of the power-ups today is the anvil. I personally can't find many places to use that. We're seeing a few drop now, and this may be kind of it, but it does go for 30 seconds, and there aren't a lot of 30-second downhill
There's
sections
two.
on this course. And then
Yeah, I've
the
heard that.
burrito and the feather. You'd be hoping to get the feather at the end, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the burrito, which I think is the burrito should be very, very popular, is with the amount of love that cyclists have for burritos, but it's not. It's not really that big of a deal or that useful out here today. The race will not be won or lost with the burrito, but we have seen the lightweight power up, that feather that you'll see, that can be a difference maker. But Kate, to be honest, these races have been won with legs, not power ups out here. Power ups have made a difference. They've
Oh
helped keep
yeah.
riders in group, but ultimately, it's come down to these selections being made. You talked about Titans Grove and the QOM or KOM there. We've seen fields split in half. Basically, by that point in the race, Kate, most of these fields are down to under 50% of the number of starters that we saw at kilometer zero.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we thought when we started with APAC, we were like, "Oh, you will literally get ones and twos the whole way up this climb at the end." Surprisingly, we had a few little groups of 3 or 4 making their way up, which ended up in some pretty cracking kind of, we could call it a sprint finish. I'm not sure that's really the correct term for what happens at the top of a long climb like that. But we certainly did have some very late attacks to divide that up, aside from some fairly obvious winners. But even by the time you hit the bottom, it's usually fairly strung out. And then it really is a game of survival.
Yeah, you feel like you're sprinting through wet cement with flat tires at the top of a climb like that, just going so slow, and it just hurts so much. I mean, yeah, one of the things Nathan and I noted earlier in the day, Kate, that you don't see the aftermath at a finish line. It's really unique because at the finish, you can keep rolling for a bit. You go downhill, and then gravity will take you to finally a resting stop where there were hundreds of racers. You can almost picture the buckets sitting there next to them in the pool of sweat underneath them after just inning. We're going to take a split screen look as that's the men as they're about to spawn out of the pen here, as this is 28 kilometers of racing.
Yeah, it's always good, I think, to look at what's happening in the pen and where they get going, because on a day like this where they do know that the back end of the race is where all the action is happening, you could think that they might be, quite relaxed in the pen. But then when you realise that there's a sprint so early on in the proceedings with that JWB sprint reverse, it kind of changes your mind on it, because
Yeah.
they do need to keep their eye out. The other thing we saw yesterday, Dave, in APAC, and I loved it, it like went down in one of my top community league Zwifting moments in terms of tactics. A fellow by the name of John Story, who is an Olympic rower for New Zealand. He's very good, but he's quite new to Zwift racing. So he's got the horsepower, but he's more like a diesel engine rather than being too dynamic in the way that he rides. He went for an early attack after the first sprint and heading into Titans Grove. Up getting out to about 35 seconds. Now, he didn't quite hang on even for Titans Grove or ultimately to the bottom of the epic KOM climb. But what I really liked about it was that he knew that once they hit the bottom of that big climb, he wasn't dynamic enough to go with any attacks. But if he did get a head start, perhaps his raw power would be able to keep him away going up there. As I said, it didn't work, Dave, but I loved that he didn't just sit around and wait for the race to unfold and for him to get dropped. And I'm kind of hoping we see that again here in America West, that there's a few people that think, well, why not? I'm not doing anything by just sitting here and waiting to go off the back. I'll see what I can do if I get to the bottom with a little bit of a lead. So this is probably the most dangerous section for that to happen in the women. And once we see the men depart and go through that first intermediate sprint, they will then hit this section through Titans Grove that becomes a bit of a dangerous section, and they're out of Dave and on their way.
Rachel Elliott attacked through this section in the women's race where our women are right now, as you see the Grupo Compacto situation. She attacked, opened up about a 20-second advantage, picked up the bonus points, and then went back to the group before she attacked again to open up a minute advantage on the climb. I think that they say fortune favors the brave. I'm with you on what you were saying as far as that's the spirit, the warriors. What was the rider's story, did you say was the name of the gentleman that
John Story, and he was
John
an Olympic
Story?
rower for New Zealand. Yeah, he's just sensational. And the other really cool part about it, Dave, is in the first couple of weeks, we knew that he was this incredible athlete, but he really didn't, show his face too much. But in the team's time trial, NZ Bro Frodo ended up actually winning the time trial in a bit of an upset, which I think gave them a lot of confidence that they do have the horsepower and they are strong riders. It's more the team tactics and the strategy that wasn't quite there. And so after that win in the team's time trial, we've seen them all get quite excited and animated in the racing and have really changed the way they've approached all of the racing. That to me is some of the super cool transformations that we get to watch, from the first time that they do race in Community League. And speaking of which, check this out, Dave. Patrick Schaefer on the move in the men's for an early attack, very early before the sprint, in fact. But this is
I
exactly what I was talking about, that they have to be warmed up and ready for anything.
And I have a feeling that we've seen a little bit of this today, not as much as I thought, where riders who know that they're not going to be useful in the finale on the climb, this is an opportunity to go out and get some points for your team and have an impact, be an impact racer. Let's see if Schaefer. And now you are incredibly, incredibly strong, Kate, if you're attacking the race at this point and able to be there for the finale. So let's remember this name, Patrick Schaefer. Now it's still about 1.5K to go, a little bit less than that before he'll pick up those points. This is a brave move, and he's got a dangerous rider, Brett Boniface, the Canadian, chasing here. So this is going to suss out. There's Brian Diddy. Brian was watching so the broadcaster. Look at the wattage from him. I don't know if I give this much of a chance with the distance that we've got to go and that much horsepower moving up to the front. And now it's going to really kick up for a moment. You can see it's a bit of a roller coaster ride here now as Patrick Schaefer, though, showing a tremendous amount of heart here early in the men's race. Again, with so much climbing to come in the back end of this race, this early bonus sprint, it's been really interesting to watch how different riders and teams approach it. But the German rider here, Schaefer, still trying to hold them off, but at 3 seconds now and still over half a K to go. He's got the feather power up, so that lightweight power up there, I don't think it's going to be enough, Kate.
It's not going to be enough, but I still love the attitude. Good on you, Patrick Schaefer, for giving it a go. And I also think that starts to build a foundation of what we can expect from this race. When riders are just having a go, even sometimes knowing that it might be a little bit of a death march to the finish if they do so, we'll also
At least you
potentially see
tried.
some of the sprinters hit out here. Foucher on the move here, Dave, but it looks like he won't hold on.
Yeah, and this is it. They're going to storm it now as that last surge to the line. Wow. I'm going to score that as Duncan from OTR, but we'll see how that B Diddy getting up there for the Friday Criterium TFC. He's one of the best sprinters. And so B Diddy again is they right now after that surge. We'll go back and look at a replay here really quickly to see if we can get a better feel for how this one scores. Remember, the fastest through segment is also in play today, not just the sprints to the line, but this photo finish here.
Ooh.
Well, although it looks like Duncan gets that for OTR, to tell you the truth, but it was close.
Oh,
Philippe
hey,
Nystrom.
look, what a perfect time to talk about. Exactly. Philippe, thank you for popping your head up mate, because we've been wanting to talk about you, and this is the perfect segue. Why do we think he's not doing
How do you
WTRL,
know?
Dave? I saw
How do you
the
know that he's
start list
not racing?
today, and I'm
Okay.
devastated.
So you saw a start list and he was not on it. Is
Yes.
that's confirmed? Okay. Well,
Correct, correct. It was sent
who,
out by Zwift today. It's officially the start list has been released, and there is no one from Costa Rica. And given the depth
I
of what we've
cry
seen from
foul.
those riders on here, I'm bummed. Yes. What's
So
going on?
obviously my spider senses are tingling. I'm going to start reaching out to my sources, find out what the story. Actually, our
Mm.
source is racing right now. Philippe,
Our source
he's
is
my source.
racing.
But,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
But but I wonder if that can change. I wonder if maybe that there's a mistake or something, or is Philippe exhausted from the cyclocross effort? Well, he's out here racing now,
Oh,
so I'm
I
not.
don't know.
I'm.
I
I don't
think
know. I'm
even him
bummed.
exhausted, he's so capable.
Well, and he clearly has become one of our favorites. Oh, I did want to send out a happy birthday to one of our loyal viewers, Danny. So you know Dan Pedrosa, his better half, Danny, turning 29 today.
Oh, happy birthday. I
From
won't keep
us,
singing because
yeah.
I think that would be not a very good way to be have
Well,
your
they say
birthday celebrated if I was singing to you, but
the new thing in America, Kate, is just sing the happy birthday first words and then end it. So you're actually on trend.
oh,
Yeah, good
wow, I'm
job.
cool. Who even knew?
You you're cooler than cool, kid. I'm a big fan of yours, Kate. All right, so
Oh,
Gallagher
I'm
here,
a trendsetter. I like
trendsetter.
Gallagher. Julie Gallagher has
And
been
Torelli
pretty impressive the last couple of the weeks, hasn't she? I think
she sure
DDC
has.
Zena are a little bit coordinated here in what they are doing over the top here. This is where people actually need to uh, be pretty wary because it descends down. Now, it's not a huge descent. It's not the kind of descent that you're power tucking and getting a lot of distance. But between now and for the next 8 odd kilometres is where they do get to recover before they head up the climb. So this is kind of the easy section. A great use of the anvil by Danny Torelli. I did say earlier that there's not
The
a lot of
one
places
place.
to use one. This is
Yeah,
one of the only
exactly.
places, isn't it?
Yeah, there's only one other, to tell you the truth. So she clearly has been going and checking out Eric on Zwift Insider. But this is a big moment. Dutch Diesel, the team in orange and blue, they're all dropping these anvils. These ladies are on the move. And if you're not on this train, it's going to be tough. Let's take a look at Matt Usborne now, the Canadian attacking for Izetta. He's been guest riding with them. He's no longer guest riding. Matt is a major force. And here you go. Usborne attacking early with old school fury.
Oh, I like Matt Usborne. He was really great a couple of weeks ago when he popped his head up and really showed us that Izetta is here for business. Just like APAC and what we saw with NZ Bro Frodo and how the team's time trial and their strength in that shifted their tactics. We're seeing the same with Izetta because they were very impressive last week. Normally, we're just used to seeing Boniface and anybody who hasn't heard me say his name before. Yes, I realise I'm saying it wrong, but it's so entertaining for me.
Or
So
are you?
I'm going to continue
Are
to do
you though?
that. Or
Yeah,
am I? Yeah, maybe somebody
right.
can help us out there. But we were used to seeing him be the only one from that team who was really visible in the first couple of weeks. But the tides have turned and they've emerged as quite a big force in this league, Dave, in America West. So I think that today there's certainly a team that if I was a team director, I would be saying, be very careful when one of these guys moves. It's a move to watch.
I am going to do some research, Kate, and figure out what Izetta is. Matt Usborne is a great guy. He was actually the gentleman that helped introduce me to Nadia Gantova. He is up in British Columbia, in Vancouver, where she goes to school, and helped get her into racing. And he's a big part of the community there. He rode
Oh.
for a team called Symmetrics, which back when you were here racing in North America, back in like '05, '06, it was a really cool Canadian team. A lot like an Australian team, Green Edge, going back years ago, where there's a real national identity, and even more local than that, West Coast Canada. And Matt Usborne was on that team, um, and was it was a really great era, actually. Um, the team went out of
Well,
business because
look,
plywood. Go ahead, Brett, on the
sorry.
attack. No, go ahead.
I was just jumping in there, Dave, because I've just jumped ahead of you, and they don't call me Fast Fingers Kate for nothing, because I've just found out via Google
Oh,
that
good.
the
Thank you.
Izetta is in fact a micro car, and
I
I
thought it was a
encourage
car.
anybody to Google it. It is a very cute little kind of, I suppose, micro car describes it in itself, right? Tiny little beep beep machine, something you'd imagine seeing in Mr. Bean movie or something. So I feel like they're having a little bit of a giggle, taking the Mickey a bit out of themselves, not taking themselves too seriously by calling themselves that, which enamors me even further to them, I
Oh, they
must
are
say.
okay.
I'd be a little
I
bit
hate.
skeptical if they called themselves like the Porsches. I'd be like, oh, I think these fellas rate themselves a bit too highly. So I like it.
Oh, it's a
Oh, it's a
coffee
coffee shop
shop
in
as well.
Vancouver.
Okay, thanks,
Oh,
Claire.
well, thanks,
But
Claire. I mean,
I'm
still
looking at
cool.
the I'm looking at the picture of an Izetta right now, not the coffee shop, but the car, Kate. And I had a friend in college. She was notorious for saying, cute. Well, that car is cute for sure.
It is. And
I
I
don't
will
like using
still,
that word,
uh,
but yeah,
be thinking,
cute.
"Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, I guess as a lady, I'm allowed to use it all the time to describe pretty
right.
much
It's more of a
anything, possible."
maybe more of a yeah.
Yeah,
But that's a and it's in that
yeah.
Bianchi. The one I'm looking at is in the Bianchi Celeste green color, so it
Yes,
makes it
yes. Isn't that a
yeah.
lovely color? So,
Brett
yeah,
Boniface has let us talk
Sir
about the car in
Boniface, this is a solid
18
gap that he's
seconds.
got. This is actually exactly what John Story did, the exact same uh, chat through here. There's some interesting chat going on, though, isn't there? A little bit cranky, I would say, a little bit of animosity. I'm not entirely able to piece together those chats and what's going on, but some people sound a little bit cranky. But Boniface, a great ride here to just stick it to them. And I think that in all our discussion of the Azetta, he's probably fueled by a triple macchiato or something if it's a coffee shop. That
Wouldn't surprise
this
me.
is clearly their tactic today to really stick it to them. And even if he gets brought back, and I think he probably will as they head up to the peak of this climb, he's setting it up absolutely perfectly for the rest of the team to counter over the top.
I don't know that he gets to the finish alone, but I think he gets to the bonus points. He's a very strong rider, Kate. When I first got into esports broadcasting, Nathan was gracious enough to allow me to join him, and Brett was one of the dominant riders. He took a long break, but he's come back and is back. Really, it looks like to the form that he had then, and absolutely a class rider. Uh, I'm not the story is as well, but this is not a move for the finish in my mind. I think Izet is looking for some of the big points that happen in a few K here.
I think, sorry, I'd muted myself for a moment there, Dave. I apologise. I think you are spot on about the tactics that are being deployed. It's a bit tough when you're sitting back in the bunch and this is happening. You know that you don't need to burn the energy to go across or to chase necessarily, but you're just sitting there kind of waiting and playing the patience game. Patience is a
Right.
tough one, and I actually think that
It sure is.
impatience brings down a lot of the absolute best riders because depending
I
on your
couldn't
mood,
agree
if you're
more.
feeling a little bit sassy, patience, isn't at the top of your list.
So I know, and it's I really don't want to be critical, but I saw a couple of rides yesterday where Uh, it came down to a half second at the end of the race, and the that riders who are making efforts for that first sprint, that had they laid back in the first part of the race, they might have had enough to win the race at the end, kind of thing. And but it's so hard being patient when you've got the good legs and you're motivated. It's like a racehorse, Kate. You need a jockey to hold you back. And that's exactly what a director does, is with, on strict terms, says you are not contesting that first bonus. You have to lay
Mm,
back, and then they know, okay, I'll get yelled at if I go for it. So I'll just do what he or
yeah,
she
yeah,
says. And that's where, I mean, that's what a director really does. It's a lot of times what you're telling writers not to do, not what you're telling them to do, that makes the biggest
yeah,
difference.
yeah. And it is some of the best directing I ever had was that we would have very good team meetings beforehand, but then during the race, the director was literally bossing us around in line with everything we'd agreed on. And it was small instructions. It wasn't long conversations. It was like, do not do
Cover
this.
that, right?
Now is
Right.
not the time. Be patient. Even so far as remember to eat, time to drink, so that you could focus on the racing, have very clear directives, but there weren't necessarily these, philosophical conversations on race strategy happening live in the race. That is definitely for beforehand. And there's a lot of riders who really thrive when it's a very clear plan. There are very few riders who are like, we'll just see how it goes out there.
Yeah, right.
That is
Exactly.
absolutely prone to
You
mistake
know what?
making.
Do you like showing up at work and having them tell you to wing it? You know what I mean? No one likes that. You want direction. And the one thing I've learned is you don't necessarily have to have been a former pro racer to be able to operate in the world of a team director, mechanic, Swan Air in the team, the formation. But you have to have been around the high end of the sport to understand that exactly what you're saying. Like, they don't need a philosophical discussion about anything over the radio. They just need information, a little bit of motivation, but you have to understand the rider too. I mean, there's a reason why Nairo Quintana takes the earpiece out at the bottom of every final climb. He doesn't need any
Yeah,
help.
yeah.
He doesn't need some
No,
guy telling him tempo, whatever. He's got it.
and I
Looks like
agree.
they
Now, it looks like the chase is coming. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, Dave. I just couldn't help but see that this gap is coming down quite significantly now. It was around the
still 10
26-second
seconds.
mark. Yeah, he'll make it over the top here, but he won't make it with much change.
It's actually going to be really close because it's a line. It's just a line at the rocks. He's going to get there. He's going to do it. Come on, Brett. Oh, they got him. They got him. Unbelievable. He misses it by five
Oh
meters.
boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, his
It looks
teammate
like his
followed the
teammate got
chase.
it. So
So,
that's of
right.
that
That's Usborne.
so Usborne got it. Yeah, that's a
Wow.
good one for their team. But geez, that's slightly offensive. But
But
I
talk
love
about
the
that's so
setup there,
Canadian,
right?
Kate. A goalie does a kick save here. I don't know that you have much hockey there, but that is a kick save for the Izetta team because, man, you certainly were. I was pulling for Brett, but if he wasn't going to get it, his teammate followed the wheels. Boy, Matt Usborne, what a key move right there. Talk about saving the day.
Yeah. Well, now I think they're in a position where we will most likely see that group just coming to the end together because, as in coming to the bottom of the KOM together. When I say the
So
end, I kind of mean
these
it's
two
there
groups.
because they'll
So
regroup
Kate,
here, right?
these two groups come together like they are right now, and then that next group, do you see the orange trons back there? They'll join too because everyone backs off for a little bit now, at least typically, because you're still far enough away from that 6 kilometer climb that you, well, watch them prove me wrong. But I have a
It's
feeling as we go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, keep going, Dave.
Oh, no, no, no. That was a good moment. I was just saying, I think the men's race sees a big regrouping, but you never do know, do you? I mean, things have been pretty wild out here today.
The women's race are about to start the climb now, Dave. This is where it'll start to get a bit interesting. It's truly the calm before the storm, isn't it? Look at them. They're all just cruising across this bridge here, knowing that they can even see it in game, this
Totally.
giant climb up ahead. There are some names in there that we know are very good sprinters. I will put it out there that the sprinters sometimes can get up climbs like this if they are able to just ride at a consistent pace and not burn too many matches on the way up. I love this climb.
Maybe
Anna
not
didn't
this
believe me
one,
when I
Kate.
said it, but
You
I,
might
you know, I
be, you
really
might
think
be.
that this is not the worst climb in the world for sprinters.
No, it's maybe not the worst in the world. You're right. And then, yeah, I mean, that 20-minute power profile is exactly what we're talking about. It's just slightly under that. But I tell you what, this is brutal. The thing is, it's not consistent with the every downhill. It just makes when you are going uphill that much more severe. Julie Gallagher up on the front. Watch this group whittle down now. It's really quite amazing as you watch. I mean, talk about the cream rising to the top, Kate.
Well, sometimes on a climb like this, simply having a teammate just set a consistent pace. We see it at the in real life racing all the time, where the team just slowly builds the pace and just makes sure that everybody's
Boy, that's
hurting a bit. You will fall into some natural groups there. Joy Connolly is in a really great position. She's the kind of rider who could get up here quite well if she's kind of allowed to, and by that I mean if there aren't any really scorching attacks up here.
look who's there.
Again,
Whitney Post is back. Whitney's winning
oh,
last week.
we love
Is riding
Whitney.
right into this
With
group. That is wow.
Yeah.
So let's start.
Positioning is important here as well, isn't it? What wheel you are holding going into this, because if the person in front of you, if the elastic band snaps for them, and by that I mean they're not able to keep pace, and you're on their wheel, you have to put out a fair bit of energy to jump around them and regain where the race is at.
Amen. I
So,
mean, Kate,
mm,
sometimes it's not you getting dropped, it's the rider 2 or 3 riders ahead of you who lets go of the wheel that is causes a major catastrophe as it ripples back down through the rest of the group as everyone realizes, oh God, now 2 seconds hesitation and you've got a big gap to close down. It's a bummer. I tell you, that's where the experienced riders know that you don't get on a wheel of a rider that you don't trust. You go right around her and settle onto a stronger wheel so that it doesn't happen to you. And that's experience, isn't it, Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few people up in this front bunch that perhaps won't be able to hold on to the climb, but equally, Andy Smith is a good example. She's someone from DDC who I actually think can climb quite well, but she hasn't had the best of wheels, and there's little gaps that keep opening up in front of her. So hopefully through this section, which is not too steep, only around 3% before it really starts kicking up and going around those switchbacks. This part, Dave, is what I consider on this climb the recovery part. You break it up into a few different sections. And once you are on this bridge, you know that you can have a drink and take a deep breath and
Yeah.
reform where, kind of your rhythm. That's the word I'm looking
You're
for. And
not
that's
going to win
exactly
the
what we're
race
seeing
here.
because it's regrouping a bit. No, and in fact, you can prevent yourself from losing the race here
Exactly.
more. And
That
we
was
have seen that group reform a little bit.
your assessment was 100% correct, Kate, because right there, if you start pushing hard, these women are all strong enough. They're going to be able to sit in the slipstream and hold your wheel. You're burning a match that you really should have saved because that's what I'm talking about. You had to store up a lot of matches to be good in the last 500 meters of this climb. It's that hard, and this is a huge group. Ossenbrink, the cadence rider, is here. Rutford for Team F3. We mentioned Whitney Post is there. How about Keskinen having a great day? Laura Thompson for cadence is here. Murchison in the front group. This is the big selection. And now another attack, splitting the group again, Kate.
This is really great riding and very strategic too. This is like, see how we go. We'll chuck it out there and see how we're feeling. I feel like they've had a pretty clear strategy. I'm really happy to see Andy Smith back up there. She's moved up and away from some of those kind of dangerous wheels she had earlier on. So I would encourage her to continue to really watch her position coming up here. Joy Connolly, I'm love seeing her up there. She is very, very capable. She's a very good sprinter, but if you let her get
Good
into a
word.
good rhythm, she is also very capable. Whitney Post, she's right up there and pushing the pace on the front. Dave, she's come into form. She's always been a really solid rider, but the last couple of weeks we've seen her kind of take another step up and really push the limits of the other riders in the pack.
You get out what you put in, and she is reaping what she has sown. She and Michael Sweet have been riding their bikes. They're fully loving bike culture, and it's really showing for Whitney, who's moving up to the front for AVRT. This is awesome. I got to give Stephanie Ossenbrink a lot of credit as well, as you're seeing these riders really making big jumps. But you're right, Smith, look where she's positioned. Look how steep it gets here, Kate. This is unbelievable how tough this is, as it's like climbing up the insider of an elevator shaft right now.
I love your analogies, except that when I remember them when I'm riding up there myself and I think, damn it, Dave, why did you put that in my head? But
Not
you are
helping.
right. This is
Yeah,
no, not helpful. This is the kind of climb where if you've ridden it a few times, you know exactly where the pressure points are. And it can be death by 100 cuts. You can really
exactly.
torture some people up here by knowing exactly when to push it. I'd also say that you could, the first time you ride up here, you might think, oh, there's some downhill, that's recovery, that's great. It's not great. It actually makes the climb a little bit harder because it almost lulls your body into this sense of
Breaks your
relaxation and
rhythm,
recovery
maybe?
before kicking up to 10% again.
Yeah, does it break your rhythm, Kate, from your perspective? Is that why?
Breaks your spirit, Dave. No, yes,
Yeah,
it breaks your rhythm as well as
it does
breaking your
break your
spirit. But
spirit.
I
I
do
know.
think
Yeah. No. So
it's
look at this,
rhythm
Kate.
is so much in this kind of
It
climb.
really is. And now this is the nitty gritty part here. It gets incredibly steep again. And watch this. Another selection is happening right now. You got to give Julie Gallagher credit. This DDC rider is punching hard post. Keskinen responding. So it's down to 3 now. Well, or is it? These riders are certainly still in contention here.
Yeah, these the gaps at this point in the climb, we've still got a couple of kilometers left of climbing up here, so people can absolutely still blow up. We will see some riders who are just looking super strong, and then all of a sudden the lights go out. But I think if Gallagher and Post uh, can ride together up here, and it's very difficult to swap turns on a climb, but if they can just establish quite a good rhythm, then I do think that this might be a group that can stay away. Post looks like she's fading just a little bit, but she does have Keskinen coming up behind. And I think that these three could probably rejoin when it isn't quite at the 10% mark and it does taper off just a little bit further off for them to regroup a bit. But Gallagher looks comfortable. She has been maintaining a fairly comfortable power. The fact that her avatar is still out of the seat, your avatar's not out of the seat unless you're working reasonably hard and putting out a good power. It certainly doesn't get out of the seat at 100 watts when you're zigzagging across the road. Not that I would know, Dave, not that my avatar zigzags across roads on climbs at all, right? I mean, who
I
does that even happen to?
I I love your term, lights going out. Um, I'm going to have to, we have a moment. This climb takes forever. Have you ever had tunnel vision, Kate, when you were racing? Did you ever experience that?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, I
I
think
mean,
I was sometimes not the best bike rider out there, but geez, I knew how to bury myself, and I had lights out a few times, and
I
the
mean, you
tunnel vision
literally will
is like,
see. Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
just phenomenal. The best athletes in the world, much like what cross country skiers must be going through at the Olympics when they cross the line, right? I mean, just like complete and total shutdown. Your body is literally saying, "We're going to have to shut you down, like reboot you because you've gone too hard, too long. You've blown up." Let's see if Whitney Post can hang on. I mean, she's fighting and fighting, and at some point, the hunter. And I mean, that's what you're looking at, Whitney Post and the hunted, as Julie Gallagher is your leader. And Julie Gallagher, I mean, it's hard holding off someone like Post right now. What a race. What a race, Kate.
This is finishing with all of the names that we knew were quite capable. Andy Smith's still up there too. She's doing a great job. Let's take a look at what's happening over at the men's, Dave, because much bigger bunch still together. They haven't hit this climb quite as hard as what we've seen in the women. But Usborne again pushing the pace. Look at those giant numbers he's belting out, might I add. Over 500 watts, and his heart rate is only 160. Beautiful cadence between 90 and 100. He's literally just cruising up there. What a beautiful sight and a beautiful set of numbers for him.
You know,
Azetta on a mission today.
that's what a world class athlete looks like. I tell you that what a selection you've got going on in the men. They're into the climb now. You can see the women a little bit further up course now as they're past tree line up into the snow. As Gallagher starting to open up more of an advantage. We'll follow both of these races across the line as this will go down as the day of days, Kate, in ZRL. So it's now going back. Julie Gallagher is starting to ride away over on the women's side of things. We'll keep you updated and see if Post is able to maintain that 10-second advantage. But she's fighting in the second spot, so we'll let you know what changes there because we're going to go in with the men now. There is a huge. I mean, I couldn't quite call this a group. It's pretty ragtag. Looks like the ships following Battlestar Galactica. Little rough around the edges, but it's a lot of riders within 30 seconds here.
It is. In fact, it's a much bigger group than I had have anticipated heading to this point. But again, it's a long climb. They're looking at, based on what you said before, I don't know that they'll go up there in 13 minutes, but around the 15-minute mark is what is expected for them. There is a lot of time on that climb to have you dig, and you don't want to do it too early. Otherwise, it can really come back to bite you in the top end.
Patience,
But we,
patience,
yeah, and
Kate.
we saw this
You've
with the
talked
women too, didn't we, Dave? That they regrouped a little bit over this bridge because it was up the top here that it got really messy. And I just want to point out before we keep talking, Dave, that Philippe Nystrom is right up there in this front group, climbing like a demon. I feel like a little campaign, like get Philippe to Worlds,
free
create a
Philippe. Yeah,
hashtag or something. Yeah, free Philippe for Worlds. But as
yeah.
it
So
kicks up, this is going to be a bit tougher.
can you imagine if he wins now today? So I will say this, Kate, and I want to hear your thought while we have the guys with 5K to go. Either you've got it or you don't on a day like today, right? We talk about patience, and I agree that the one thing you can do is damage your chances by being impatient, right? So, but you've either got the legs or you don't on a climb like this. There's no tactic as far as that goes. You've done the training or you haven't. You got the DNA or you don't. You know, so like, not all of us are pro
Yeah,
bike racers. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
you're right about that. You've seen many a very hard training athlete just not quite make it because they just didn't have the
Oh,
physiology,
I
which
do
is
have
always a
some
little bit of
news
a
for you
bummer.
though. I
Oh, tell
I
me,
have
is it
I
Philippe
have
News?
no, it's not. It's Dave Toll news. I've
No.
purchased a
Oh,
disc wheel. So now not in
ooh,
Zwift, but in real life, I have a disc wheel now.
what?
So, yep, I'm not even kidding. So I'm going to take possession of it tomorrow. So we'll see if it is the equipment. If I'm in the Olympics in Paris, it was the disc wheel for
I
sure.
need I need a little bit more context around this acquisition. We've got lucky; they're still heading on the up and up for another 4 kilometres, so I might be able to find out a bit more about that. What's the disc wheel for, Dave? Like, tell me about the thought behind that.
Just passion for cycling, appreciation of great cycling equipment, and I just think disc wheels are the coolest thing ever. I've always wanted one, so I saw one for a good price, and I said I'll take it. I do
That
need to,
sounds good to
Bamba.
me.
I do need to get you to send me a spare tubular though, because it takes tubular tires, and I have clinchers, so I still have a ways to go. Do you got any kicking around in the old
Yeah.
garage? Do you call it garage in Australia?
I do,
Do you
we do.
have
We call
any?
it the Garra, although we say it slightly different, accents and all. But in
Yeah,
our
yeah.
in our garage, my father taught me how to uh, shellac a tire onto a wheel. That was my lesson growing up, and I would still know how to do it. I'm pretty sure they don't use shellac anymore. But if you want to go old school and keep the
I'll
tradition,
give it a
Dave, I
try.
can show you how to do that.
Well, you know what else is
Osborne,
old
it
school,
looks
Kate?
like he's accelerated a bit off the front, Dave. So he's keeping this Azetta run going.
Well, and the tactic, the 1-2 punch, that's about as old school as it gets, and that's exactly what Izetta has been doing here as they take turns. But you know what the problem is? You got Brian Diddy still right there, and Diddy has been a beast this season. As a matter of fact, he has been one of the riders that I'll really, Kate, my takeaway from season 2 of 2021, 2022 has been guys like Brian Diddy. Big, big step up. Philippe Nystrom still there. Foucher, Boniface, Pletcher having a great ride. Hill is there. Tudor is there for Riot. But Matt Usborne, this might be, it's a big ask to bring him back, Kate. About two
It will
thirds,
be a big
even
ask
more than two
this
thirds.
time. Yeah, it's
The
it's always
gap
a
is
little bit tough though, because you think that that with that kind of distance, that'll be hard to claw back. But it is also possible that Osborne, just goes bang and explodes, and as that lovely term I used earlier, a little bit lights out, or hits the wall. That's another one we could say. Uh, but he is looking pretty strong, and he
experience.
is looking
Yeah,
pretty comfortable.
yeah, and experience tells me that he knows his limits, right? This is not a guy that's going to bonk. Um, but you never do know. I mean, even, Chris Froome can bonk. So we're all
Hmm.
human. We can all. We're going to go back actually and take a look at the women's race as Gallagher is now into the final K, Kate.
This has been a great ride from Gallagher, and she's opened that gap up. She's now 21 seconds up on Whitney Post. Great ride by Whitney Post. DDC have set themselves up very beautifully for today. They've also got Andy Smith sitting back in fifth. Brittany Keskinen and Mallory Murchison are riding beautifully together as well, and they are teammates, and they are riding together about a minute adrift of Gallagher. Julie Gallagher has put her hand up quite a number of times in the climbing stages
I
to be noticed. We've definitely said the name before, but this is a really strong ride from her. Look at her heart rate, though, and her power and her RPM there, Dave. I would call this in the box, is the term I would use for anybody riding at 50 cadence and 180 heart rate coming toward the top of a climb. This is not an easy section for her, and she is muscling up it, maintaining the distance back to Whitney, but by no means is Julie Gallagher feeling fresh as a daisy here. This is she's pretty much in the pain box right now.
I think that she's punched her ticket for in the future Premier League ride. I don't know what her time from bottom to top is going to be on the climb here, but it seems to me like this is a world class performance that we're witnessing from Julie Gallagher. And she's now put 22 seconds into post, but you're right, it didn't come easy, but it never comes easy, Kate. You just go a little faster.
Yeah, yeah. That I feel like when you start training really, really hard, you feel a bit ripped off when you start realizing that things don't get easier; they just get faster. Like nobody
Dave,
told you
isn't that true?
that that's how it
Right?
works.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
but and everybody on this climb is suffering. That's the thing. We can point to Julie Gallagher and say she's clearly, really putting in the effort here. But all of them are. Whitney Post. It's like she's come. She came a couple of seconds closer. It's now gone back out to 23. It's yo-yoing a tiny bit. She is absolutely throwing the kitchen sink at this. Post, less of a climber than Gallagher, if we're just talking about pure specialities, but a lot more comes into it, a lot more about technique and strategy than just pure physiology in this one. But Julie Gallagher will take a comfortable win in the end. It is still 21 seconds. We could see Whitney Post before, but she is not in frame anymore. Dominant win from Gallagher. She'll go over the line,
It looks
and I
very.
imagine in real life she'll probably have a little bit of a slump over the handlebars after that effort.
Yeah, we'll see her in the Whitney Post, though clearly the silver standard, as it's 43 seconds back to third. So great ride today, Whitney. It's going to feel good to finish this one off. Couple races to go
Oh,
here
yeah.
in the season.
Only a couple left to go. This is week 6 that we're through now. We've had some great points racing happening, a team's time trial, and 2 weeks of kind of slightly in the climbs, although last week was a little bit more for the sprinters as well than just the pure climbers. Climbers Gambit today is certainly the one that will bite them. Next week, they're
Look at
onto
cute
Richmond,
Matt
Dave. I
Osborne.
love that course. Yeah, look at this.
Isn't he
He's
cute?
coming toward
Yeah.
the finish now. Yeah, cute. Are we going with that? Like the cute cars,
I thought you
cute
said it was
fellas?
cool. I thought that we agreed it was
Yeah,
cool.
cool.
So
Yeah, okay, we can go with that.
So Matt is anything but cute if you're looking at him from 11. So actually, it's gone up, hasn't it? Well, so the one guy I would not bet against Brian Diddy, as he's inside of 10 seconds, and he looks like he's the last Starship Ranger out there with a chance to get Matt Usborne, as Usborne has hit hard. Look at this. I mean, Kate, he's down to about 1K to go. He's only raced for 41 minutes and 17 seconds. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is Matt Usborne back and in full effect.
This is such a good ride, and only 9 seconds though. That isn't a lot. It is not beyond the pale that Diddy might be able to throw
But you
everything
see
at
the
this
numbers.
and get back.
If you watch, Usborne continues to match him watt for watt. Right? So until you start seeing Diddy putting some 6.7s up there with Usborne in the 6.4s, it continues to be advantage Usborne. Takes another second.
Look, you make a very good point there, Dave. That's very good analysis of that, and I wasn't even necessarily staring at that as you said it. But now I can't stop looking at that right of screen and all of those powers. Tudor and Hill are together, a little bit adrift of Diddy. They're all keeping fairly close pace with each other, and Boniface back in 5th, who is accelerating and is going above and beyond. Um,
Would you
Osborne,
like to see, Kate, would you like to
yes,
see Matt's face? Do you want to see what cute looks
yes.
like in action? All right. Well,
Oh, right.
we
I
are
thought we
going
were
to
talking about like
oblige
a
you.
live suffering face. Oh, there he is. See, he is cute. That's a nice
Nathan raced
photo.
against him. Yeah, they raced together at Tour of America's Dairyland, a race in Wisconsin this year. Matt's part of the,
Oh,
uh,
oh,
yeah,
there you go. Well,
still part of the race
Nathan
team
looks
here.
like a fanboy. There, he's totally fanboying. Um, he's got a few of them up there. Well, Osborne, it's his avatar, might I say, looks nothing like him in real life. So perhaps he needs to work on that, or it may just be the
He's a cool
laughing.
guy.
I don't know. Either
Yeah,
way,
no,
he
Matt.
has cranked it up a notch, out to 15 seconds. B Diddy, or P Diddy, whatever we'd like to call him in any given moment, has now dropped to 15 seconds back. So I think Osborne is going to take this without having too many worries. The line's just here.
Well, what a congratulations to the gold standard. I tell you what, guys like Matt Usborne are what makes missing in real life events. He is such an impact person out there. So that's really nice to see him and Izetta get a big win. It's going to be Brian Diddy. Brian, we love you, man. Keep racing your heart out as the TFC rider's going to come through for second today. They got up to climb at a 14:02 today for Matt
Crikey.
Usborne.
Jeepers, that is
That's
smoking. We
faster.
talked about 15 minutes, and we talked about Leonard going up there in 13 and with some change, but to go up in 14 minutes, gee, this is a really solid community. This America West.
Oh,
I
Usborne would
like
have
it.
been top 10
You look
in
at
Premier.
yeah, that's a really solid ride from him, and I think that Azetta are just leaps and bounds in how they're riding together. Pletcher, we're looking at now. He'll come across. Hello, Dan Pedrosa in the top 10 on this climb. That's a
Enjoy some
pretty
birthday
versatile
cake,
ride
Dan.
from him. Yes, maybe that's what maybe he's like working extra super hard because he's about to go and dive face
The
first into a
dive in.
giant birthday cake.
Yeah, tuck into
Yeah,
Danny's birthday
yeah,
cake. Yeah. Well, good to see
exactly. I
Dan.
like that.
So these points really matter too. Obviously, we've been joking, having a really fun day here, but for these teams now, these points are compiled. Every rider on their team has the points added together. That's what we're fighting for on the points right here, and it's going to be violent. Just in front of Philippe Nystrom for the OMG team. Oh my God, they killed Kenny. Kate's favorite name.
M Beats. That's like the master of
Cool
beats or
name.
something. That's a very cool name.
M Beats.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Uh,
Well,
Gonna
that
turn
was
around the
some
hill.
pretty impressive riding. Can we
I've heard it.
just another shout out, Dave? If anybody knows why Costa Rica don't have a team in Swift Worlds, let us know about that. Because I would really like to get in touch with their federation. And I'm not
I'm
sure
gonna
what
reach out.
Bill's doing with this turnaround. He probably wants a
I saw
big
Bill
descent. I
Castro.
don't know, to get
Well,
some Ks going.
I've seen a few riders doing this today. It's like at the top of a summit finish, you'll see the riders grab a jacket and a towel and flip around, maybe a can of Coke, and ride back down to the RV. But in this case, you didn't need to do that, Bill. But you know what? You do you, man. Like,
You do you. Yes.
yeah,
Exactly. Oh, well, that was a sensational. We've got the C women over on the rider's screen as well. Dave, they have already finished at the front, it looks like they might have had some go
yeah,
over the
they're all.
line, but we've got a whole heap of riders that are
Well,
still
it's been a
fighting pretty
day.
hard to get up there.
Yeah, it's been a day. That's for sure. One we won't
Okay.
forget. And it's weird because with Premier, the season ended, Kate, yesterday, but we're now just moving into the finale. Two more races, one team time trial and one road race or one points race before the playoffs begin. And we bring all the top teams from around the world together to race and see who's the best of the best.
Yes, well, Prem League has been great this season, but I do love the community leagues, Dave, and some of not only the talent that it showcases, but the very exciting racing. Let's take a look at these results straight up. Matt Osborne for a sensational win for Zeta SDE. Coffee Car, take your pick. Brian Diddy coming in TFC Scorpion in second, 16 seconds back. Great riding from him as well. Graham Hill from On the Rivet Rush. And gee, we're splitting the Americans and Canadians here, aren't we? He came in third. Eric Tudor from the Dirty Rascals Riot in fourth. Brett Boniface from Izetta, he was in fifth, the big animator of the race. Brian Bishop on the Rivet Rush in sixth. Tony Pletcher coming in seventh for On the Rivet Hayes. In eighth, we've got Marc-Andre Foucher from the Dirty Rascals Riot. Dan Pedrosa coming in ninth. OMG, they killed Kenny. A great ride from him, given how well he's been sprinting lately. And James Byland rounding out that top 10, Dave.
All right, let's take a look at how the bees sorted things out today. If we do, you can always go to WTRL.racing. Yeah, you know what? Why don't we send you there to check in on results from a whole day, whole season, a whole lifetime of racing on WTRL is all there. But we've
We'll
got the
take,
women.
yep, I'll leave these to you to read, Dave.
Thank you, Kate. Julie Gallagher with the command performance for Dutch Diesel Cycling Xena, taking the win, but the always punchy Whitney Post was there again for silver. And Mallory Murchison, breakthrough rider for West Coast Coalition B, is in the bronze medal spot. Brittany Keskin and her teammate, both Canadians, in fourth. Andy Smith in fifth. We watch that rise continue for the Dutch Diesel rider. Maddie Marino, sixth for Team F3 FBW. Cadence rider Laura Thompson, Canadian, seventh. Hannah Stallkamp in eighth for ATP Racing Vespid. It's going to be Camilla Rutford in ninth, the American on F3 FBW. And then Altavella Tonitas gets two in the top 10 today, as it is Gabrielle Zaks. Rounding out our top 10, the American there. And it sounds like my voice is about to cash out too.
To round out for the day. Dave, you've had an epic day of calling. It is that time of day where I urge you to go and get yourself a chamomile tea and soothe that voice that has been at it all day. Thank you very much. We are back next week for Richmond Reverse. I love Richmond. So we will see you all there and have a great week.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Nathan. Great job.
Thanks, man.